What's going on, everybody? My name is Miller, and in today's video, we're going to continue our division rankings. And so we're going to talk about what I think is the fifth best division in baseball, or the second worst division in baseball, depending on how you look at it. But before we get into that, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. I know most of you guys are, helps me out a ton. If you enjoy, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think who you guys think is the worst division in baseball, who you think is the second worst division in baseball. And I just recently started a podcast called Diamond in the Rough Podcast with a couple other content creators. So the link for that YouTube channel and Spotify will be in the description below as well. And last but not least, I stream on Twitch a lot, twitch.tv/McMiller42. Just hit Twitch affiliate, so excited about that. So make sure you check that out. And why don't we get into it? So the first team I'm going to talk about is the Cleveland Indians. And there's a lot to say, but also not a lot to say about the Indians. I'm going to lose the glasses here. The Indians, obviously, their goal is to spend as little money as possible. Their projected payroll in 2021 is probably the lowest, or if not close to the lowest in baseball, projected after arbitration and all said is done, $41 million in 2021. That is so low. And they are a small market team, but they do have a very wealthy owner. So they're just kind of crying poor a little bit after COVID hit. I don't support it. I don't like how they don't want to pay anyone in Cleveland. We knew Lindor was going to get traded, but I don't like it at all. Talking about the 2020 performance, obviously Cleveland's known for their pitching. They've been known for their pitching. They still have a really good rotation in Shane Bieber, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Zach Plesac, Tristan McKenzie was a top prospect, and then Adam Savali looks like the number 4 guy who was solid in 2020. So they were third best in team ERA, and I don't love team ERA, but we are going to use that a little bit to judge teams pitching in this video. So they had the third best team ERA in baseball last year at 3.54, which is obviously really good. And Shane Bieber led them all. He was the best pitcher in baseball last year. Arguably, could have won MVP in 2020. And in the last few years, they have traded away Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer. Couldn't remember his name. They've traded away Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevenger, and Carlos Carrasco, and Danny Salazar fell off a cliff. So that's amazing top 5, and they've traded those guys all away in the past few seasons, and they still have a really good rotation. So obviously Cleveland is really good at developing pitchers, and that's what keeps them competitive. But in 2020, they had the 27th team OPS in the league at 691, which is just straight up terrible. That's not good, and that's that's before they have lost Francisco Lindor. I know Carlos Santana had a down year, but they lost him. They lost Cesar Hernandez, who was one of their best players last year. So it's not looking good for them in 2021. It's not looking good at all. They probably will have a team worst OPS in 2021. That's my prediction. And they will have lost. Last year they traded Mike Clevenger at the deadline, who was solid for them, didn't pitch a ton in 2020, but he was able to lower their team ERA, so they lost him, so the team ERA may go up a little bit, and I don't expect Shane Bieber to be as good as he was in 2020. I don't think he'll be as good as he was in 2021. That being said, though, I still think he's good, but I'm not going to give it away, but check out the Diamond in the Rough podcast. We go over some overrated players, and I may or may not have talked about Shane Bieber in that one, but I want you guys to check it out. And the Indians they don't really project to get much better either. They have the 14th best system according to MLB.com in the 2020 midseason rankings. For their farm system, they only have one top 100 prospect in Nolan Jones, who I do think is going to be really good. He will help that OPS, that overall team OPS here shortly, but I'm not sure exactly when it's going to come up. I don't think he's expected to start in the big leagues at the beginning of 2021. So for me, the Indians are kind of they're not a good organization to follow. I don't like how they don't want to spend any money. They never have any offense. They were good a few years ago, but after that 3-1 loss to the Cubs, they haven't really been able to bounce back since then, in my opinion. So the next team we're going to talk about here is the Minnesota Twins. And just a caveat, we're not going to talk about the teams in the order I think they're going to finish in the division. I'll do that prediction at the end of this one. The Minnesota Twins, in 2019 had one of the best, or if not the best, offenses in baseball. They hit 1,000,000 home runs. They were disgusting. The Bomba squad. But in 2020, they weren't as good. They had the 16th best team OPS, which is lower than I thought, at 733. But they were surprisingly good at pitching. They had the second best overall team ERA at 3.52. But that was with an incredible Cy Young-esque performance from Kenta Maeda, who I don't expect to be as good as he was in 2020. Again, he's another guy who the Central is known to have good pitching but not good offense. So I do expect now that teams are going to have to play other teams outside of their divisions again in 2021. I don't expect Maeda to be as good because he's actually going to have to face some decent offenses. We saw it. I mean, he was blocked in the rotation in Los Angeles when he played for the Dodgers, but again, I don't expect him to be as good as he was in 2020. And they lost Jake Odorizzi, who's a free agent, and I don't expect them to re-sign him, and who was solid for them in the past few seasons. So their team ERA is probably going to go up, but I do expect their team OPS to go up. Maybe it depends on whether or not they sign Nelson Cruz. That's my next point. They have yet to bring him back. Most people in the industry do expect him to go back there, but I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet. I would have thought by now he would have already signed with them, but DJ LeMahieu didn't sign with the Yankees until just a couple days ago. So obviously the offseason has been slow. So I do expect him to go back there, which they desperately need because their OPS and their offense takes a huge hit without old man Nelson Cruz. They also lost Eddie Rosario, who they let go, didn't tender him a contract, but they do expect top prospect Alex Kirilloff to come up and take his spot, and I do expect Kirilloff to be good. But they, in 2021, if they want to be good again, if they want to be competitive, they seriously need bounce back performances. But Max Kepler struggled a little bit. He had just over 700 OPS, which isn't terrible, but not great either. And then Miguel Sano only hit like 200. He did have about 8 home runs, I think, but not great numbers from Sano, so they do need him to bounce back as well. So all in all, the Twins are decent. They have a good offense. Their pitching was much better in 2020 than I think it will be. They also lost Trevor May to the Mets, so their bullpen took a hit. They signed Hansel Robles to replace Trevor May, but I think the Twins in 2020 opposite performed what people expected them to. Their offense wasn't as good, and their pitching was really good. I think that'll balance out in 2021. They'll revert back to their old selves, but I don't think they're going to win this division in 2021. The third team we're going to talk about, an exciting young team, is the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals pitched surprisingly well again in 2020. They had the 14th best team ERA, which is obviously middle of the pack, but pretty good for the Royals considering they weren't a winning team. They had Brad Keller, who was very solid. He had under a 3 ERA in 2020. I do expect Danny Duffy to bounce back a little bit. He's got a career 4 ERA, but in 2020 he had a 5 ERA. So he'll probably bounce back to that 4 ERA mark and probably be a little bit better than he was, and that'll bring the ERA down. And then Brady Singer had a 4.06 ERA in 2020. He's one of their top prospects. I do expect him to pitch really well. He's exciting young talent for them, so that'll probably help their ERA as well. And then they added a guy by the name of Mike Minor, who is either going to, I'm guessing he'll start for them. He could be a relief pitcher for them, but Mike Minor is obviously comfortable in Kansas City. He pitched for them a couple years ago, and he's definitely going to be a mentor for those young pitchers there, like Brad Keller and Brady Singer. And I think he's going to help that rotation a lot, and he'll bring that ERA down even more. And then they were 19th in OPS at 712, which isn't great. We know they don't have a lot of heavy hitters, but they added Carlos Santana, who again had a bad year in 2020. He got on base still because he walks a lot, but he didn't hit all that well. Hit under 200. So I think he'll bounce back to probably more of his career numbers. Bats about 240, 250, with like a 750 OPS, and walks a lot, obviously. So I think he'll bounce back for sure. And he'll help that offense out a lot. He'll also help those young hitters out by mentoring them, telling them how to have a professional at bat. Guys like Mondesi, Hunter Dozier, guys like that I think are going to take a lot from Carlos Santana. The Royals definitely need a more consistent Adalberto Mondesi. We've seen in 2019 and 2020 where he's really good to end the season, but throughout the beginning of the season he's not always all that good. So I think he does have potential to be more consistent, and they definitely need that if they want to be competitive in 2021. And then they have 2 staples in the organization in Salvador Perez and Whit Merrifield, who are both incredible So I think they help out that team a lot as well. And then they have the 10th best farm system in baseball, so they do have some guys on the rise. Like I said, Brady Singer. They have their young Bobby Witt Jr., their shortstop in the who got drafted last year. He's their top prospect. I don't think he'll be up until 2022 or 2023, but they have some guys in the system that are on the way, and they are going to continue to get better and be competitive. So I do have high hopes for the Royals, not necessarily in 2021, but in the not so distant future, I think we're going to be talking about the Royals a lot. The fourth team we're going to talk about is the Detroit Tigers, who had a league worst ERA at 5.63, so they could not pitch at all in 2020, and that's ultimately why they weren't very good. They had the 22nd best OPS at 700, so not terrible, not great in terms of every other offense in the league. But in terms of their pitching, they definitely, I think they will be much better in 2021. And the reason I say that is Michael Fulmer, who's had that rookie of the year campaign a few seasons ago. I don't know if we'll ever see that Michael Fulmer again, but he's going to bounce back. In 20 something innings, I don't remember exactly, he had an 8.78 ERA. So I don't expect him to be that bad in 2021. And then Casey Mize, one of their top prospects, I think he's their second overall prospect, one of the top prospects in baseball, had a 6.99 ERA in 20-something innings in 2020 as well. So that definitely inflates their team ERA. And he's only 23, and he's got a lot of developing to do, so I do expect him to bounce back as well in 2021, be a little bit better, learn how to pitch a little bit more. So I think a combination of those two guys will definitely help them out. Those two guys bouncing back a little bit will help their team ERA out for sure. And then they have some young offensive players. They have Jeimer Candelario, who had a huge breakout season in 2020. Whether he'll be as good as he was, I'm not sure. He had an 872 OPS, which is all-star level in 2020. He'll probably revert back, maybe 750 to 800 OPS, somewhere in there. I do expect him to be good, maybe not quite as good as he was. I think that would be putting him a little bit too high expectations on him in 2021, considering 2020 was such a weird season. And then they also added Robbie Grossman, who had an 826 OPS. I think Robbie Grossman's one of the most underrated players in baseball. He's been in the league for quite a long time now. He's a professional at bat. I think he's a mentor to those young hitters, and I think he's going to help them out a lot. Not to mention those young hitters have one of the best hitters to ever do it in Miguel Cabrera to look to. So I do think the Tigers are another team who are going to keep improving, building up that system, and in a few years they'll definitely have a competitive team on the field. And then the last team, last but certainly not least, the most exciting team in baseball, not the most exciting team in baseball, but one of the most exciting teams in baseball, in my opinion, is the Chicago White Sox. As I get my notebook to stand up, so I have my notes. The Chicago White Sox, they have tons of young talent. They're so much fun to watch, and they could pitch. They could really throw it. In 2020, they had the 5th best ERA in baseball at 3.78. Obviously, Giolito's their ace. He's good. He had that no-hitter in 2020. Giolito's one of my favorite pitchers to watch. I think Dallas Keuchel's going to continue to be good. Probably not Cy Young Keuchel, but you can count on him for 150 innings and a 3.5 ERA. He's also really good for those young pitchers. They added Lance Lynn, who has pitched amazing the last 2 years, Cy Young caliber seasons, and he throws fastballs, dares you to hit it, and people can't hit it for some reason. Not sure why, but Lance Lynn's really good. Another guy who can mentor some young pitchers there. And those young pitchers include Michael Kopech, who I'm not sure is going to start out the 2021 season in the rotation, but he's definitely on the way, throws absolute gas. Ronaldo Lopez hasn't really lived up to that top prospect hype he had a few seasons ago, but he's an arm that can be mentored by guys like Lance Lynn, Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, and then they also have Dylan Cease. And then, of course, their bullpen is disgusting. They have guys like Aaron Bummer, Garrett Crochet, and then they added Liam Hendricks as well. Liam Hendricks has been the top reliever in baseball the last 2 seasons. He's absolutely disgusting. They paid him a lot of money to be their closer, but I think it's going to work out for them in the end. Definitely, I like that deal for them. They need a shutdown closer, and they got their guy in Liam Hendricks. So the pitching is very exciting, and that's not even including how incredibly young and talented their offense is. They had the 8th best OPS at 778 in the league last year. And that's, of course, with Jose Abreu winning the MVP. He was disgusting in 2020. maybe he won't be as good, but I don't see Jose Abreu being bad in 2021. Of course, unless he gets injured. I do expect him to have maybe not as good of a season, but an incredible season nonetheless. I think Moncada's going to bounce back. I think we're going to see more like 2019 Moncada than we saw in 2020. He didn't have that great of a season. I do expect him to bounce back a little bit. He's still so young. He's too talented to be bad, and he's one of my favorite players to watch. Great swing. And then I think Luis Robert is going to be a little bit more consistent. He started out his rookie campaign, looked like one of the best players in baseball, looked like the next Mike Trout, one of his comps, of course. And then he definitely hit a wall, fell off a cliff a little bit toward the end of the season. He bounced back in the postseason a little bit. But I think Luis Robert will be a little bit more consistent. And maybe he won't be the best player on earth, and he won't be the worst player on earth. So somewhere in the middle there, I do expect him to be good. And then they also added Adam Eaton, professional hitter. Not a power guy, but he adds more consistency in that outfield. And of course, they have Eloy Jimenez, one of the best young hitters in baseball. And then they have the White Sox, according to MLB.com, they have the 6th best farm system in baseball. But guys like Nick Madrigal and Luis Robert have kind of graduated out of that, so they're probably going to be a little bit lower ranked to start the 2021 season. But that doesn't really mean anything because those guys are still so young. They literally just graduated the farm rankings. But a couple guys that haven't graduated yet that I do expect to be good are Andrew Vaughn, one of their top prospects. Technically, Michael Kopech is still a prospect. I think he'll be good in 2021. And then Nick Madrigal, I'm not sure if he has graduated or not. I'm not sure if he made that threshold yet. He may technically be a rookie in 2021. But in 29 games in 2020, he hit 340. He's obviously not a power guy. I think he hit 1 home run. I don't expect him to hit very many home runs in his career. Definitely a contact guy, but that's good for them. It gives them a good leadoff option behind Tim Anderson. So the White Sox are just so talented. They have guys like Yasmani Grandal. And like I said, Eloy Jimenez. They added Adam Eaton. The White Sox, I think, easily win this division in 2021. They're so much fun to watch. Maybe I'm just excited for them. I hope they're as good as they should be. But I do expect a lot out of them, and I think they're a fun team. Real quick before we end the video, my predictions for how this division is going to end up at the end of the year. I do expect the White Sox to easily win this division, like I said. Their pitching and their offense are just too good. I don't think any other team in the division comes close to them. And then I do have the Twins in second because their offense is so good. They do have some good pitching. And they probably will add a piece or two before the season begins. So I do have the Twins coming in second, probably taking a wild card spot to make the postseason. Who knows if they'll ever win a playoff game again. Sorry, Twins fans. And then in third place, I think this is kind of a coin flip, and this might surprise some people, but I don't expect a lot out of the Indians next year. I think Shane Bieber is going to revert a little bit. I think Zach Plesac is going to revert a little bit. And of course, they have like the worst offense in baseball. So I think the Indians, their pitching might get them third place because they're still competitive. But I would not be surprised if a team like the Royals, if they have some of the young guys have really good seasons, the Royals may be able to take third place. So I expect them to finish in fourth because I don't think the Indians are going to be as bad as they potentially could be. And the Royals still have some young guys that they need to develop. And then in fifth place, I do see the Tigers. Again, they have a lot of guys who need to develop a lot more. And they haven't really added any free agents or anything like that, except for Robbie Grossman, who's not a franchise-changing player. So it's definitely going to take a few more years for the Tigers to be competitive again. But that's how I take it. That's how I expect to see the Central Division. The White Sox, the Twins, the Indians, the Royals, and the Tigers. Very similar to what it was in 2020. I don't think it's going to be as competitive as it was in 2020 because the Twins and the Indians have definitely gotten worse, and the White Sox have definitely gotten better. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Make sure to leave a like. Let me know who you guys think is going to be the worst division in baseball, who's going to be the second worst division in baseball in 2021. And that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, my socials and the Diamond in the Rough podcast are going to be in the description below, so I hope you enjoy this one. Peace out.